Huh?
Bottom line is just based on that alone, the more at bats that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I worked probably one Saturday, and then one Saturday I got it right. That's pretty cool. That's Saturday. I said, yeah, you know.
So for you don't get to the point where you start. When I first started.
I mean, I don't mind one Saturday. I got yeah. Like how my son play college football.
And for some reason, the sound isn't working. No one can hear the sound. Oh.
Showing up the windows. But.
Is that better? All right, we're just gonna roll with somebody saying, all right, guys, let's bring it back in. We're just gonna use the phone. We'll have to, we might get some background noise.
You're gonna have to mute, go to the,
Mute us.
Yeah.
There we go. No, it's good.
no, go to,
You have to.
you have to mute
Turn
the,
your speakers off here. Turn your speakers off. We shouldn't hear this.
right here.
Here. All right, it's right there.
You just got to mute that.
All right, we still good?
Can you guys hear us? All right, good.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Technology problems. All right, we're gonna keep moving. So belief system, let's just shout them out real quick. We kind of lost track of some time.
Customers always come first.
Commitment, not things. Patience. Creativity, like this before this.
Teamwork together. With the opportunities for all.
Missing one. Anyone remember what it is? Success? There you go, Mindy. All right, going over our state of the company, we had a really good June. It was awesome to see that. We hit some good numbers, again, numbers to be proud of. So kind of going into the closed units, we still did 158. That's kind of been our average right now. But of those 158, we were able to do over 43 million in closed sales volume. That was awesome. Listings taken, again, we talk about our future business, which is listings taken and contracts written. That's 103 and 160. I'm getting some feedback myself. Oh, is somebody not? Okay. We also go into the big one I wanted to really talk about is the closed GCI. This is you guys' money, your commissions earned, and we hit over $1 million. I love that number. For a while there, I think we've done it twice this year, but when you hit over $1 million, everyone's making money. We're all getting paid and it's a good time. So state of the company, any questions on the numbers? Nope, good. That's a great month. Appreciate everything. And you can see we actually had some good profit share. We threw back up on the check that we're able to give back. So hopefully a lot of you see some direct deposits here on the 21st. Productivity coaching. James, you got a lot to be proud of with your group, huh?
It was a really good month. We have some new people on the board and some finally getting some traction going. So Zira, she sold her
Right here, front and center. Maryland.
I'm sorry, she got her first listing, but she had her first buyer sell.
Yeah.
She picked up another listing in Maryland for a high price.
Any good feedback on your first sale? Was there some struggles? Were there a lot of wins? Like, what did you learn? Is what?
I learned that when we've been told that the realtor's job is problem solving, it actually
100%. We're professional problem solvers.
Way. It was a struggle, but it was worth it.
But you learned a lot, I'm sure, and now you'll be better for your next deals. Yep.
I just pray they aren't like that.
You'll learn. They come and go. You're gonna get some easy ones, and you'll get some challenging ones. But the challenges ones they make you better. So you do need those.
There were a lot of issues, but they were very accommodating. I didn't have any issues.
That's good.
Anything, and we're still going through a few things, and they're still doing.
Yep, fantastic.
So it was an awesome experience, and I have to thank James and Jay for helping me through.
6 boxes. Who's not on you? All right. Don't need people. Coach La. Over here coughing. Wait, Presley, what's he doing? There you go. Cool, thank you. All right, thank you for sharing. That was great.
Malak, he got a buyer sold.
He's crushing it right now. Brad, he's gonna be graduating from the program in 4
he got
months.
2 buyers under contract, and he just got a listing that he's gonna be putting on here, probably within a week or two.
Yeah,
Um,
Ginger, right
Ginger
there,
Ginger
second row.
Ginger picked up a great investor who, she had one settlement last week, so that'll show up next month. And she was supposed to have a settlement
It's past Monday.
this past Monday, but as we all know, problem solving, things are kind of happening. So, but again, it's from it was an old mortgage that was never.
Share the story of what you did with that buyer, because we talked a little bit, I know about it, but the point of it was the persistence. What's that? Yeah, just how you kept following up like that. Cold lead.
And Nick said, take it. I said, yeah, what? So I took it and I called them. Then, right. They were just, he wasn't doing it. So, I followed up with him, I called him, and, he didn't really take that first property, and then he just basically goes for like a couple months, but I kept adding, I was persistent, not annoyingly persistent, but just persistent. And then he eventually, like 3 months later, he called me, let me take him out.
You got 2 deals with him, right?
And
Two
Ginger
deals.
read her first deal, so we were up to 12:30 in the morning.
So, I had to do it.
Yeah.
I told him I was gonna do it that day.
We did it.
And now he's a lifelong buyer. You got 2 deals right off the bat from him, and that's just from follow-up. I mean, that's
Keep
it.
showing them their houses and-
Yeah. So this is it's awesome. So this is kind of like what we were talking about with the rising star panel. Sometimes we just got to reset for the ones that have been in the business for a while, and you're forgetting on the things that you've done when you were early into your career. Like you were hungry, so you're following up. So yeah, that's awesome to hear. That's why I like to hear from the PC group what their experiences are with their first couple deals, how they got them, and what they did to get them to the closing table, because it's a good refresher for the rest of us.
Crystal got a buyer sold, and she got a new listing under contract in 5
Job.
days.
Crystal, anywhere else?
So again, we're still making a push for, K-Score, so if you guys need some, K-Score cards to hand out to people who are looking to make a career change, let me know. And then we have 8 people signed up in June. Actually, we're at, I think, 17 now for July. Well, so we're starting to really get some things going.
James and I have been working on a good system process on the front end, because we're starting to see some of these offices kill it. Harrisburg East, for one, they're bringing in 10 to 15 a month, and it's because of the K-Score system. So we wanted to make sure our system was good first up front, and then we started running in DDAD, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
We got 50 some applicants. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's what they're doing. So we should start seeing those results going into the second half of the year, which will be great for the company.
And then the next career night we're gonna be doing is August 27th. So a lot of these K-Score people are gonna be coming to that. So if you know anybody that wants to kind of find out a little bit more information about what it really takes, bring them, send them to me and register for the, career night.
All right, July birthdays. What we got? We got Seth back there. Amy's usually somewhere. Jared, happy birthday to you. Neil, Jay, Dylan, Maria, Justin, Michelle Jones, everybody. Happy birthday, guys. Steve just had his first timer club. So we want to always try to, and I'm sorry if we miss you, it's not intentional. I try to listen, and if anybody else hears, we want to start to really celebrate your first deals outside, just not only PC, but the ones that are on teams and stuff. So Kev's here somewhere, isn't he? Where's he at? Oh, there he is in the back. Kev, what'd you do? I want to hear about it. Let me tell about it.
This is actually number 2, but that was the other one, first one. this one, the paper like that. There was another agent already, which was the first phone call. And then I continued to follow up. There was living agent, didn't sign anything, so I kept following up. Eventually, for the Zoom call throughout the city, the referral was some family friend that had used it. Zoom call, presented value, and they said, all right, we'll give you a chance, come out next week. So perfect, I'm free next week. So we ended up finding a place, went 12 shows in 2 days. One of the ones I didn't tell them about was over the budget. We ended up seeing it, actually loved it, and I was working under contract with, and walking back.
And how much was the price?
So it's 550.
So that's worth those 12 showings, don't you think? Good job, Pat. That's great. That's hard work, man. And then Jason's not here. He might be on Zoom, but Jason got his first deal. He's been hustling. I don't know if you've been seeing some of his new listings. He got some really nice ones up there. So make sure if you have $1 million buyer, check with Jason. He has an awesome listing out in Boiling Springs area. And then Lisa from Chambersburg had her first closing last month. Any other firsts? Anybody that know of? No. Good job, guys. Production board. Kate back on top. Took units and volume. Greg Jean comes back for his second month. Petula, Martha, and then Sandy cracked the top 5 this year on as a good job, Sandy. And then Colby and Neil had a phenomenal month, over $7 million. Liz, Dave Monster, team Accardo, and the Vince Carapresto team led by Aaron. Aaron's over here on the right, hit the board for number 5. So congratulations on hitting that. Units, same kind of thing. Oh, Will Orem and Lori also took units at number 4 and 5. And Jeff and Seth were the difference of the team on units for teams. I'm sorry, at 4. So congratulations. Let's give everybody a round of applause real quick. Oh, and there it is. So Sandy and Aaron, congratulations. Leaderboard debut for, I'm right on that. Yeah, 2024. Yep. Good job, guys. All right. Wow, look at that graphic come in. Damn, Julie. That's pretty fancy. So I had a couple new agents since our last office meeting, and it's still going. That's great. Abby, who is on Liz's team, I saw she was on Zoom. Halo's going into PC. Bryce just joined the Neil and Colby team, and Jasmine signed up on Monday, actually.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
There she is in the back, right? Yes. Who's talking? No, I think she was asking me something. Maybe not. Stupid mouse. There it is. Go ahead. Oh. Well, we'll keep it going while he's doing this. Belinda, if you haven't seen, was highlighted as the regional cultural icon for the month of July. Belinda's sitting right here. We know how much she gets. She participates with this office and what she does for us outside of here, not just real estate related, but community related. So Belinda, we always got to thank her. She's running donations. You want to talk about that just real quick, 30-second pitch?
Out there, table out there, and should have been seeing my post months ago when Julie was doing it for me too. We're giving back to the homeless through Life Path Ministries to the end of the month. That table's out there. If you don't want to do the shopping, I will. I have my Venmo, or you can give me cash. I will do the shopping and deliver it. So I just need it here, and it's for the homeless. So in our community, so let's.
Yep. And Life Path, for those that did Red Day, Life Path was one of the places that we were in. Yep, we gave back. So she has
saying that these are desperate. The baking needs, they've doubled the numbers, and they're running out of food to feed them.
Okay.
So that's why the baking needs to think women and children. And but anyway, that list is out there. You take a list with you. I printed them off. They're sitting out there. And again, I'll do it for you. But you
Yep. If you don't want to shop, you don't have time to shop. Give it to Belinda. She'll do it for you. Upcoming events. So we got if you're interested in making the switch to DocuSign or learning DocuSign, there's DocuSign 1-on-1 coming up. What is SLM? Oh, Scott Leroy. Okay. I thought it was like a sales leadership thing. So Scott Leroy Marketing, Scott Leroy, if you guys remember, sets up all your tech and IT stuff on the back end, emails, websites. Use Scott Leroy. I mean, we have it as part of our membership. You might as well call out to him, but the 22nd, he's doing that. Referrals, if you want to start building more of a referral database. I know Jeff Selby's really, really good with the referral database, but that's a little bit of an overview on what that looks like. Recruiting through K-Score. We talked about how we're really ramping that up. Agent mastery, RAYAC for some of the new agents, new agent orientation coming up. Command mobile app. I don't know how many guys have Command mobile, but as Command starts to evolve, so does the app. The app is kind of on the fly. You can use your database. You can contact them while you're driving, do things like that. And then our biggest event that we're holding for ourselves coming into August, we're going to get back into more of our training. Joe's going to do another workshop training class like we did with the value presentation. But August 8th, for those that were here a couple years ago, we had a very successful picnic at is it called the Lake Club? Yeah, the Lake Club out near Spring Grove. It was a really nice event. I think at that point we had 60, 70 people. We have welcome kids, we welcome spouses, whoever you want. Jordan, who isn't here, but him and his wife are going to take charge on keeping the kids occupied. We'll have different things to do. He has all these yard games. So please RSVP through the Punch Bowl. We will need to have a pretty good head count so we know what to expect for food. Oh, there's the big version of it. All right, we're about wrapping up here to get the man of the hour on, but hometown, as you guys know, we have a new face here at York, and I want to introduce her, and she's going to give a little intro speech. But Kathy Heck she's going to be upstairs. She has been here for a couple weeks now, and
You don't even know my name.
I'm sorry. I'm losing it.
What a way to
today.
start. I mean,
I was all messed up with the Zoom, and
it was the whole sound thing.
yeah. I have an email from a Kathy Heck right now, so
Oh.
I got you all mixed up. So I'm sorry.
All right.
Kathy Heath.
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 Just like candy bar.
Yes.
So, and I'm just that sweet too. Because they tell
Tell them why. Tell them why.
tell you why. I have been around forever. I don't know how many, I don't recognize a lot of you guys that I haven't worked with, but I've been around for a very long time. So I have an extensive background in title, obviously. I've worked for different mortgage companies. I've worked in the real estate industry, residential, commercial. That's where I kind of started my career in the round building on Route 30. So anyways, going way back, not for Dale. Family, personal, married. We share 2 sons, my husband and I, and 5 wonderful grandchildren. We love the outdoors. We love the water the most. So if you can't find me, I'm probably on the water somewhere. But my cell phone is available to you all. I will answer my phone. If I don't, leave a message. I'll call you back. I have no issue with evenings and weekends. That is what I do. Kind of wrote some things down here, so just kind of look at these. But one thing that I ask, and I did kind of talk to Ryan about this, I am a communication person. So I want to communicate everything with you guys, let you know where we are, keep you in the loop. But by the same token, I also like to reach out to your customers if you want me to. If you're one of the agents where you like to be the point of contact, I have no issue with that. Just let me know. But if you can, when you send your title request over, if you can include phone number, email, I like to reach out to them within like 24, 48 hours because you've already told them about me. And while it's fresh in their mind, I like to reach out. This is me. Have any questions? This is what I do. This is what I'm looking for. Always happy to do that. The other thing is if there's anything that I can do for you guys that you want, you need to help you in your business to be successful, let me know. I'm always happy to try to help. So that kind of wraps it up for me. But I mean, I have 3 customers involved in this. I have your clients, I have the lender, and you guys. So if I keep you happy, keep the rest of your team happy, that's my goal. So anything I can do, my door's always open. Stop in, say hello, let's meet, let's chat. Looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you for letting me have the floor for a
Absolutely.
minute.
Thank you, Kathy, and welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Andrew couldn't make it today. He's actually down in DC doing a podcast. But he didn't really have any updates to give me. But you know where he's at upstairs and you can get a hold of him. All right. Man of the hour, Peter Ruth. He's coming in. We got a lot of changes coming up, going into effect here in about 30 days. Peter, Julie did and
Oh, you could, okay. Yeah.
if you could read it, I
Oh,
think
And don't worry,
you probably have this memorized, don't you?
No.
Yeah.
It's nothing too intimidating.
So if you want to go through this.
Sure.
But awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Morning, everybody. Almost afternoon. I always am cognizant on the last thing standing between you and lunch, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. But I heard over here, yes, I am the solicitor for RAAC. For those of you who don't know me, that doesn't mean I'm your attorney, just means I represent the association that you all are hopefully members of. And in that capacity, I offer a hotline. I always say this, 717-846-9800. I've probably spoken to many of you on that hotline already. I can't disclose whom though, because that is all anonymous, as those of you who called know. So never hesitate to give me a call, especially about this stuff. I'm going to go over it. It looks like a lot when I say that there were 23 total forms that have changed. I think actually, no, 21, and there's 2 new forms. Some of those forms have literally the amount of changes that you're looking at there in red. So they have just made a change to say that no association of realtors has made a recommendation as to the term of this contract. Now it just says that no law or association of realtors has recommended any term or condition here. So again, not too significant, not too substantial. But just to give you an overview why I'm here, I can talk about anything you want. Normally it's about the NAR settlement and what's going on there. NAR has agreed to resolve the litigation as it relates to the seller suit. So the sellers sued NAR and a bunch of brokerages. This has nothing to do with buyers. So it doesn't, have any protection for you all or the association from buyers, only from the seller side. What has to happen is that $418 million has to be paid over about 5 years. NAR has said they will not increase membership dues as a result of this for 2024 or 2025, though. And the goal is there's, like I said, about 1 million members of NAR presently. So that's about $418 a member if they had to go to you all to do that. But thankfully they are, or is how you look at it, they're pretty well off. So that hopefully will not have to happen. So good news there. Also, as it relates to that, there are going to be some changes. That is what's most reflective of these forms. The main change is that you are no longer allowed to offer cooperative compensation in the MLS, in an association-owned MLS. So Bright MLS is owned by associations. So therefore, Bright MLS is a great example. You can no longer put into the MLS that there will be cooperative compensation offered. Now, what you can do is put in concessions. So one of the changes you'll see on the forms is that they've now taken out the reference to the offer of cooperative compensation in the MLS, or as made in the MLS, or as offered in the MLS, because it won't be. There will be no offer there. So teaching point here, I guess if you're negotiating, they've removed the form CAS, which was the cooperation, I think, or the compensation addendum form. And now they want brokers to use the form CBC. That's the cooperating broker form. So that form is the one that says that there's an offer of compensation of X, percent or Y dollar amount, that as long as I'm the procuring cause on behalf of the buyer, then I will be entitled to receive that cooperative compensation. Okay. So the other thing to remember is this is not going to be in the MLS. So you cannot kind of, screen this for your buyers. If they say, hey, I don't want to see any properties, that are not offering cooperative compensation, you're not going to be able to do that, right? Because typically your listings now, depending on how you do business, listings will be auto-populated. You're not going to be able to screen that out by way of a field that you used to be able to do. Hopefully weren't doing before, but in any event, so another teaching point, if a property is not offering cooperative compensation, you're not allowed to unilaterally, with that, and that just means without consultation with your client, you can't unilaterally exclude that from one of the properties that they would see. Okay, so if your client has said to you, hey, I can't afford that, I need that cooperative compensation or seller concession, and I don't want to see those properties, you should first explain that's probably not a good idea. You can always negotiate that. And if you like the property, let's make an offer, right? Second of all, I'm not going to be able to screen those for you. All right. So we're going to have to see those. If you tell me you don't want to see them, I'll make the call in advance and try to get the information before we have the showing. And we'll go from there. Okay. So a lot of that is just because it's no longer going to be made public. So if you think about it, this whole suit was about transparency. One thing that's becoming a little less transparent is the offer of cooperative compensation, right? So, the other thing to keep in mind, if you have a listing, I know a lot with in the market, the way that it is, especially if it's a nice listing, you're going to go from, maybe 12 offers on a property to 12 phone calls about the property saying, hey, are you offering cooperative compensation? Are you not? If so, are you offering seller concessions? Now, the good news is seller concessions will be in the MLS. So it's now a field that you can have. That is paid by the seller. So keep that in mind. Although if you think about it, cooperative compensation is technically paid by the seller. The seller pays their listing broker. Listing broker shares some of that with the buyer broker, right? In this instance, this is a seller paying directly for that buyer service. So it could be for, closing costs. It could be directly for the buyer broker fee. Okay, so that concession could be included there. Now, the thing you can't do is advertise in the additional comments saying that seller concession may be used for cooperative compensation or anything like that. You can just simply say that the seller is willing to offer some type of concession without referencing that cooperative compensation. Okay, so all reference to cooperative compensation, if you think about it, must be taken out of the MLS, as well as any website that is linked via IDX or automatically pulls information or uploads information into the MLS. Okay. Now, I know brokers are going to get creative, and I hope they do, because you'll probably have either other websites or links within the website. I'm not tech savvy, so don't ask me how that works. But somehow you'll be able to access this information where you will be able to see what offers of compensation there are, if any, that are being made. So rest assured that's going to happen. The only thing that prohibits is in the MLS. So another teaching point, you have a sign, right? You can put a rider underneath that says seller willing to offer cooperative compensation. That's perfectly fine. You put it on Facebook, right? As long as you're not linking Facebook back to MLS, pulling data that way. All of that information can be there. You can email, right? One agent actually said, hey, I'm just going to leave a voicemail if you hopefully don't have too many listings, and say, if you're calling about 123 Main Street, I'm offering cooperative compensation. 245 Main Street, they're not offering cooperative compensation, right? So that's a little extreme, but think about, there's going to be some new ways that you're going to be able to advertise and market for those properties. So removing any reference to that cooperative compensation. The other item involves buyers. You can no longer, now the lawsuit says provide services to a buyer without having a buyer agency agreement with that buyer. Now, they've interpreted that, and I'll say NAR in a lot of the literature they're putting out, before you tour a home. So virtual touring, in-person touring, anything like that, before you actually give access to that home, to that buyer, you have to have a buyer agency agreement. Now, it can be non-exclusive. Okay, so everyone always knows we have an exclusive buyer agency agreement that says from the date you sign this until it expires, if you buy any property whatsoever or acquire an interest in property, you owe me the broker fee that we say here. You can have non-exclusive though. So that non-exclusive agreement, which they've really hammered in on some of the changes, is going to say, I'm working with you on this property and this property only. If you buy any other property, all right, that I don't show you and I don't introduce you to, you don't owe me a commission. Any property, including this property that I show you to or introduce you to, you will owe me based on the broker fee, subject to whatever I can collect on cooperative compensation or seller concession. Question?
So that way you would need the buyer agency for every house you show them then?
No, so it is for the subject property. So the typical transaction would say, hey, I just want you to show me this one. This is the only one. I don't really want to do a long-term agreement. Can you get me access? You say, yeah, good. Here's a non-exclusive agreement. This will apply to this house, as well as, and you'll write the property address in, as well as any other property that you would show. So that's where you have to
getting in his way.
and everything else. Sorry, is that me?
I just logged in. I think
You have
it's
to
when you
keep
come
those
in
records to
after the fact.
demonstrate. I showed them 123 Main Street, even though it's not in the non-exclusive buyer agency. I was the procuring cause that brought that about. So therefore, they are the ones who owe me that commission, that buyer, if you're otherwise not able to get compensated by the seller. So, yes. You absolutely can. If you want to do more, you can always go back and modify it, but don't feel like you have to, because it does apply to any other property you would show them. The hard part is that they're going to say, oh, wait, it didn't say 123 Main Street, right? And you say, well, remember on, June 2nd, when we went to 123 Main Street and we had this email exchange and all these other things, and here's the showing time, receipt and all that other stuff. So that's how you can hopefully address that.
So it's
Go
a
ahead.
showing and introduce. So suppose you didn't actually do a showing, but you did send them like that listing or something. Is that the introducing part?
So to me, that based on what they're putting out, okay, that is not a tour of the home. You are simply generating and showing that, kind of like if you're working with a buyer, right? And you may not have that agency agreement yet, but you say, hey, why don't I'll add you to my website. I'll start to send you these emails. And then once you find a property you actually want to go see, or you want me to show you via virtual tour, at that point, we have to sign this buyer agency agreement. Okay. Some brokers have taken the position they're not even going to be willing to do that unless you have the buyer agency agreement, which I think is not a bad idea. Because again, do you want to be in a position where you're sending those, they then get the listing and say, oh, this is great. Let me call up the listing agent, right? And negotiate that. So good idea to have that in place beforehand, but I don't think it would be a violation to do that. Likewise with like a blanket mailer, hey, I helped your neighbor, move into their home. I'm more than willing to help you. Give me a call if you want to work with me. You don't need a buyer agency agreement to solicit that as long as it complies with the regs of the real estate commission. Question, yes, sir. Yep.
Right.
It's a blanket form, so.
Yes.
you might have to go with, exclusive, but any house.
That's correct. Anything after that point that you would have shown
So
them.
you don't
Right.
have to put in residence.
Yep, that's right. Now, normally what it would be is, hey, I want to see this property. So as an agent, I'm going to say, yeah, we're going to see that property, and hopefully you write an offer and then I'm covered. But to your point, you don't have to then go back and say, I want to see the one next door. Let's modify this and write that in, because you would hopefully be the procuring cause for that sale eventually.
Because I watched the thing where they load the reforms.
Yep.
I don't think on that one there are set.
I think there's a commencement date, but I don't believe that there's an expiration date, to your point. Yes, because it's indefinite, because if they make an offer at any time. Now, again, I think that you could say, hey, 6 years have gone by. I know that we signed this document. It's been on the right. But as long as it's within that reasonable time frame, then yeah.
Well, historically, what's the implementation is 1 year.
That's right. For a listing agreement, they're limited by law to 1 year. It doesn't say the same thing about buyer agency, but I think the same argument would apply. You have 365 days and that's it. So, yeah, great point. Other questions? Yeah.
Back to.
Mhm.
So I'm still confused on what,
Okay.
I know obviously you can't put it in MLS.
Right.
So that means it won't be down to IPX until.
Right.
You can't put it on the website.
That's correct.
Yeah, so, but this is where it gets complicated.
Mhm.
Like, for example, my website, it's actually two websites that are combined into one website. One has an IDX part of it. One doesn't, but it all looks the same. So I use this for one thing. The other thing, saying.
Yep.
So like, what's the?
You're just going to have to demonstrate, because they'll ask for compliance, and you'll have to show that information. Now, again, if you type in the same address and it takes you to the same place, I think that would be non-compliant, because the part of that website is going to be IDX fed. So therefore you would not be in compliance. So my recommendation would be you would have a separate website essentially for your listing that maybe, and I don't even know, you might have a link to that in the listing, or at least saying, hey, check out my website for more information. And that way you could go and somehow obtain it. But I can't answer the tech question in terms of how that is. Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, go buy a dark. That's how we get it.
And that's how it's from the consumer's perspective is how they would view that. Yeah.
So that's. And my other question, have you been following the West Coast MLS? I was reading about their back on.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that I think that they've been arguing when they were sued originally and the DOJ has weighed in as well. So, yep.
Is there a reason why Braves is pushing back? West Coast MLS is on it?
I think that they've negotiated a better settlement for NAR than they did out, and the West Coast basically lost. That's why.
They lost.
So yes, yeah. So yeah, so they're in a position to where they're trying to, I think, do a lot of damage control at this point. And there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on in terms of damage control out there from a personal perspective as well. So I think that could factor into what they're pushing for. But in any event, yeah, it's two separate lawsuits, it's two separate situations. One being, the association owned MLS versus broker owned MLS effectively. So that's where I think you get into the difference, and that's why they are not part of that the settlement as it relates to NAR and their lawsuit, because they are not an association owned MLS, but they lost. In layman's terms, yes, yeah, they lost. So good point. Yes, sorry.
Is there any responsibility on the listing agent side to do any sort of policing where that buyer agency assigned from us?
I don't necessarily think in terms of outright, like, hey, there's going to be a policy shift that says you have to do this. Whether or not that becomes part of your best practice policy, that's kind of up to the agent. But I do think it's not going to be unheard of for settlement companies, especially, to be asking for the cooperative broker compensation form, to the extent that they're not doing it now, but just to confirm how the compensation is to play out. But I think, to your point, I mean, if they're showing a property without having that buyer agency agreement, that does not fall back on the listing agent, unless the listing agent is the one who's showing the property without the buyer agency agreement. So it's not like, hey, you should have done this and I'm not going to let you into the house, or you're prohibited from seeing the house if this doesn't happen. I guess the seller or the buyer, seller could put that restriction on the listing, saying, I don't want any buyer coming in here who does not have a signed buyer agency agreement. And then if the agent does show the property, it could be an ethical violation because you're showing the property contrary to those terms. But it's not going to be like, oh, the listing agent's liable because the buyer didn't do their job. Buyer agent didn't do that. Yeah, good question. Yes, sir.
You don't think like
Nope. They're not that, as far as Bright, what they have said. Now, I guess Showing Time may, but they have no skin in this game whatsoever. So I think, well, as far as what Bright has said, there's not going to be any requirement to upload these forms. There's not going to be any policing of that. It just kind of falls under, hey, you violated a court order, and therefore you'd be in contempt of court effectively by failing to do that. And I also think it's going to be a learning curve. It's not, they'll be policing it, but it's not like, oh, wait, you screwed up and now you're going to jail or something. It's hey, there's some issues here. Make sure you address this. Don't let it happen again. Repeat offenders, though, for sure. I think there's going to be they're looking to make an example probably. So.
Sorry, so then from a client's perspective, says it like nothing changes for us. It's just the new buyer's agency document that will require that, when you submit your file.
Good deal. Yeah.
So for Zoom, because it's a little bit muffled, when they ask questions, you might just do.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Settlement. So what we're talking about are the Pennsylvania forms. Is that, it's not across the board for every state? Are there different settlements per state, or?
No, so this, the question was, is this only for the Pennsylvania forms? Are there going to be different forms for every state? So the settlement is national. So it is all, so these requirements will be implemented throughout the nation. As long as it is an association owned MLS, you are not allowed to put this into the MLS. Now, the forms, though, we're talking about today are state specific. So Maryland might do something differently than Virginia, which they definitely will, versus West Virginia, versus all over. So all of that is subject to change, but these are specifically what our forms are being affected by. So is there another question? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes.
With the new forms, I'm specifically looking for the buyers, even if you have current forms signed, whether it's listening to the buyers.
No, that's a great point. And hopefully we pulled that out. There's a form NPC, which is the new policy compliance. Wait, what is it called? Notice of policy change 24. And I think it's in the packet here. But this basically says for any contract that you have that's currently in effect, all you have to do is, and not necessarily that you have to do it, but good practice might say, oh, sorry, I went too far. We don't have it in there. Good practice. It just highlights after August 17, 2024, sellers are no longer allowed to offer cooperative compensation in the MLS. They're allowed to offer concessions. Buyers must have a written buyer agency agreement. And it kind of explains in a little bit I'll say favorable language for the buyer especially and for the broker about the settlement itself. So it's the MPC is the acronym, if you look that up. So that's the general recommendation that PAR, and I think on their webinar put out the other day, that anybody who is a little bit squeamish, if brokers want to go back and make sure that that's done, use that form on any of those prior contracts just as an addendum. And it's also a great tee up to explain what's going on to any buyers who might be, or even sellers who are like a little bit like, does this mean I don't have to pay you now? Does this mean I don't have to? No, here you go. This is how that plays out. Yep.
But they're signed in a year. So.
Yeah.
Don't now.
Yeah.
From a compliance standpoint, right, or we do a with that,
Sorry, what was that?
are you guys good with us? Have you ever been assigned with the buyer? Cause I guess that.
I don't know.
Here.
I don't know that answer. I'll coordinate that with the broker, but, I feel like, everyone's gonna come to you at the end of the day if you are in trouble. So.
Yeah. So, yeah, and just for everybody on Zoom, the question is, do you need to go back and use a new form or you update your buyer agency agreement? So to be clear, PAR has put this out just as kind of a catch-all. It's not a mandatory requirement. It's not saying you have an ineffective or invalid buyer agency agreement or listing agreement if you don't use this form. What they are saying, though, is that this is a great way to kind of reiterate to them, hey, although we said originally that I'm willing to take what's offered in the MLS as compensation, there is no offer of compensation anymore in the MLS. So I just want to be sure you're aware that I'm still going to take what I can by way of cooperative compensation, but it won't be in the MLS. Okay, so it's going to be a case by case basis. I don't think it's necessary. Err on the side of caution.
Yeah, caution, better safe than sorry.
Right.
I would just cover your butt so you don't have any issues with somebody that might create a problem.
Yeah. And that's the other main thing from PAR. Nothing here is really mandatory. Nothing the law is really requiring. It's just saying, with the exception of removing the MLS part of it, right? So it's taking out the element of saying that we're going to advertise this in the MLS. All of this is really just meant to help you all with your explanation of what's going on, so you're legally compliant when you're explaining these forms. Okay. So again, these are kind of voluntary changes to assist with the interpretation, implementation of that lawsuit.
For new listings, have new listings coming up. Now.
Yep.
3%. What do I do after?
So you can, after that, that's still fine. But what I would be explaining to them is, hey, come after this August 17th date. We have a new form that's coming out August 1. We can still use this form, but there may be this addendum that I'm going to ask you to sign because of this change.
Right.
Oh, and Bright, gotcha. Yes. So that'll come out automatically. So there should be seller concessions now that's available. That is forward. Yes, that should be forward facing now. So you could, if you want. Now, again, you have to consider that there's a difference though between the seller concession as well as the cooperative compensation. So, I think they're going to make it for you likely as of August 17th. So I wouldn't change anything right now in terms of what's out there, because right now you're still allowed to do that. The only thing that will change is that will disappear.
So it'll go from 3%
To nothing.
To nothing.
To section.
No, it will automatically populate to 0 and 0% concession. So that is the conversation you may want to be having with your client to say, hey, there's a difference here between, cooperative comp and concession. Do you still want to do this the same way? And that might be a good tee up, because the form I was just talking about, the MPC, talks about then concessions versus cooperative comp. So, yep.
So once they make that change, you can go back in, you have negotiated concessions and put the concessions in.
Yep. And right now, I think you're able, if they've already agreed to concessions and that's in writing and you've used some form or you use an addendum, concessions, I think, are forward facing. I might be wrong, but for the last conversation with Bright, I believe that the concession tab should be available for use now for listings. If it's not, it's very shortly coming, probably by August 1st, I would say. Isn't it? Okay, good. That's what I thought. So. Not instead of, no. So that's just another opportunity, I think. Yeah. So just to reiterate that, the question was, should we be using concessions instead of cooperative compensation? Concession is just another way for a seller to offer to pay for buyer services. So, which could include buyer comp. So.
opening up
Mhm.
those conversations we had as opposed to saying a 3% and then having it come out on the 17th. So if you do it ahead of time and put it in there, then you don't have to worry about that.
Potentially, yeah, yeah. Now, again, they could offer a percentage for cooperative compensation. They could offer an additional seller concession. They could say, we're not offering seller concession. It's just, I want you to share your commission, which is fine as well. You can advertise that anywhere you want except the MLS. Or they could say, I want to do both. I want to do cooperative comp, keep it at 3% and or 5% or 100%, whatever you want. And then we're also going to offer 2.5% concessions. So that in that case, you would go back and update the seller concessions to 2.5%, which would be on top of the 3% that they're offering for the cooperative comp. Okay. So the main thing, keep those two different. Concessions are treated completely differently. If they come back and say, hey, I'll offer seller concession of 3%, and you have a listing agreement with them, for example, now I can say this in a brokerage of 6%. They're paying 6% to you and they're paying 3% to the buyer as concession. It's not as if that 3% concession automatically comes out of your 6%, so that you're only getting 3%. If that's what they want to do, right. So what they would be doing would be saying, hey, instead of that, let's offer the 3% concession and I'm going to pay you directly 3%. Okay. Then you can offer that to the seller, to the buyer at 3%, whatever they want to do with it. If they want to use, but when I talk to the buyer agent, who's representing the buyer making the offer, I'm going to tell them I'm not offering cooperative compensation. All the buyer is getting the seller concession at 1%, 2%, 3%, right? So the main teaching point, those are separate things. Don't include them or don't automatically think one gets taken in because the other gets taken out. So
the buyer to figure out how they want to use that 3%. We don't
Yep.
have to tell them.
Yeah, that's right.
Say
It's
you
up to the
get
buyer
3%.
what they want to
Good.
ask for, because that's a new provision here on, I think it's page 2. That's the seller concession. So in your agreement of sale that you're drafting, you're now going to put that directly in. This is what I want. Now the seller can counter back and renegotiate or whatever, but that will now be a part of your agreement of sale. Yes.
So essentially, the concessions would be like, okay, we're gonna offer 3% seller help. And then that'll free up 3% for the buyer to be able to then pay your commission. Right?
Potentially. Yep. That's right. Yeah. Or I wasn't going to offer any seller concessions at all, but I'm willing now to offer, because I know I can't advertise cooperative compensation, but I can say I'm going to pay you 3% or whatever it is. Then you're going to give a seller concession of the other 3%. Or you could say I'm getting my full whatever it is. Plus, my buyer's really, or my seller's really incentivized, and they're going to give an additional 3% as seller concession. So, but that's to your point. If they're paying that, then I'm not going to pay cooperative compensation, but maybe you still will. That's up to your seller. That's up to what you've agreed to with your seller based on their direction. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Peter, in our Zoom today, highly recommended that when you write a contract
Mhm.
for, if anything, email the compensation form that was needed.
Yep.
Get that signed, but what that'll do is that'll get permission, and it'll probably take that, that information that giving concessions to the buyer.
Yeah.
That's a guarantee. Then you have to put concession.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's I got to come back to this because this is the form MPC. Sorry, I'll get right back to that. But this is the new form that they're talking about. So the notice briefly describes the MLS policy changes implemented in August 2024 that may affect the contracts that you have with your broker. They encourage to discuss these with your broker. So you can go over to all of these items and basically have them sign it. So NPC, it's the form NPC, and yeah, sorry, it's up at the top there, but it is the notice of policy change for 2024. Yep, that's why it's all in red. Yes, absolutely. And hang on, Jeff. So you go back to your question. I'll be right there. Yeah.
Governor said, write it off.
Mhm.
Then that
The CBC, that's it, yep.
That because bargaining is basically that contract is
But the bargaining typically.
Well,
Yeah.
They said to do that for every house. If they say they're not creating one, then you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the new form CBC, I think it is. And again, yeah, prior to offer, sending that over. So that's the cooperating broker saying that the listing broker has agreed to pay pay this amount of settlement. Again, if they're the procuring cause, as we talked about, of a successful purchase transaction. And then it references the arbitration. Yes, you can now send this over and should have been sending it, even if you use CVC beforehand, it just wasn't supposed to go with the offer. But yes, you can use this to say, this is what you're agreeing to pay me. Once we do that, yeah. That's right.
So compensation.
Correct. Yes. So I have here and then I'll come right back to you. Yep. Go ahead.
I was watching the video.
Mhm.
Or the retainer.
Mhm.
So how's that work? I guess it's not. We can, this wasn't on here. Before. The buyer.
Yes, actually it was. So the non-refundability has always been on the buyer agency. Yep.
Retainer.
So, well, they've called it a retainer, but they have always had a broker fee, a portion of which you could collect in advance that was non-refundable.
Right.
That's always been a part of your buyer agency and listing broker agreement. Yeah.
So is that for the private brokers?
We've never had it, but yeah.
It's non-refundable. Yeah. So a great point. If you're worried that somebody's going to do this and flight out after you take photos or something, right? Because they're a little flighty. They're just like, hey, I don't want you to sell the property. Now this is buyer agency, but talking about the listing agreement.
Buyer.
So another great example. Hey, I'm going to do a non-refundable amount of, $1,500, and that's going to get you through 5 properties, right? That I'm going to show you. And then we're going to document that. And I draw down on everyone via the retainer. It could just be that I'm collecting $500 from you up front, and I'm going to show you as many properties as I want, or as you want. And then after the fact, I earn the balance of a percentage of whatever that is. So all of that has been in place. It's just nobody ever used it. Everybody always said, I'm going to work with you until you find a property, and then I'll worry about the compensation. So,
I know you foresee this.
oh, absolutely. I see buyers, well, maybe not so much, but I see some savvy buyers saying, hey, I just need access. So kind of like a transaction licensee, but let's do buyer agency agreement and give me access to like 5 properties, help me write an offer. But I want to do it for like a set fee. I don't want to do it for a percentage. And if that's the case, you say, hey, that's all well and good, but if it's going to be a set fee, then maybe I deserve a little bit of that up front and I can draw down on that, or I take half up front and then I earn the balance when you actually, so all of that, this is the form that's allowing you that flexibility to craft that relationship. Yep. So, and then I had you, sorry, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Correct. Yep. Yeah, and notice that this is not signed by the buyer and seller. This is only between the brokers, the cooperating compensation, because that's like, to Jeff's point, that's saying, hey, if I bring a buyer, you might as a listing agent now be signing like 6 of these, right? Because you're going to get all 6, 7 different offers, 20 different offers, and they're going to want you to sign this beforehand if you're offering cooperative compensation. Now, it doesn't mean you owe everybody. It's only if you're the procuring cause. Then that links the buyer. Yeah. Ethical violation at that point. Yeah, they've already agreed to that. So trying to unilaterally change that, especially as a condition or term of the deal, that's a violation of Article 16. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. So, well, to Jeff's point, get it beforehand. That way, and then, hey, you could sign it. I send in 12 offers, all 12 are rejected. I don't get paid on it. The one I send in does, I get paid on that. So, yes, sir. Yeah, that's creative, but I would not recommend it. So yeah, not creative enough, unfortunately. So, but yeah. So, any other questions on that? I think. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Absence modification with your buyer, though. Yeah. Because so let's say you've agreed to 2.5%, hypothetically. They're offering 3 on cooperative compensation. You can go back and amend your buyer agency agreement and explain to your buyer, I know that we have this agreement that says I'm gonna get 2.5%. They're offering 3%. Is it okay with you if I get that additional 0.5%? They sign off and said, absolutely, that's great. I'm glad you're getting more money. I'm not paying for it. You sign off and amend your buyer agency agreement. You are now allowed to collect 3%. So it is hard and fast unless your buyer agrees that you're allowed to take that.
So clarification on that.
Yeah.
One of the-
Right.
But then I say that.
Yep.
Well, then after that, well, signed in, so if they don't accept our offer. So is there, see what I'm saying?
Well, so it would be related to the specific deal, most likely. That's how you would want to craft that, yes. Yeah, because really that it would be based on the transactions and the modification. And that's probably the best way to do that. And that's a way to protect your client too, because they want to be sure, hey, I want to agree, I'm paying you 2.5%. You're allowed to get 3% on this one, but I'm still only having to pay you 2.5% if another transaction comes about where they're not offering cooperative compensation. So good point. Yes. Any other questions? That's pretty much all I got. So I can, yes, I'm sorry, Vinny, go ahead.
I have a question. Not necessarily mine, someone else yesterday when we watched the whole thing, but in the past, agents will use old forms, like let's say 2013. 20.
I've seen REAC forms. They haven't been around since like the 90s. So yeah, yep.
Is there going to be a call for everyone in the brokerage to utilize these new documents?
So so the question for those on Zoom are people use a variety of age documents and whether or not there's going to be kind of a call to utilize the newest documents. I think it's going to come down to the brokers really and what the brokers are going to require. I know that most brokerages, this brokerage likely will say, hey, best practice says in light of these policy changes, we have to do this. It's not, again, the good news is, and if you look at the literature that's coming out now, that they're asking everybody like, oh, what's changing? And everyone's saying not much, right? Like not much has changed. We might be getting some questions, but everything's staying the same. Our forms might be changing or modifying a little bit, but it's not going to be, anything too crazy. So I think that's kind of, it's going to revolve around the brokers implementing proper practice. There's only so much, and I know Reed can attest to. I mean, we can hound on folks to try to implement stuff. If they're not willing to do it, all we can say is, hey, there's a benefit here that you're missing out on, right? So that's about it. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's what they always say. And they're recommended for use for Realtor members with R, but they're not exclusive. Yeah, it's not exclusive to that. So it's for anybody's use. Now you guys have the benefit of getting free access to them. I am not a PAR member, so I'm a council member, but no, I am. But I don't fall into the member, so I can't get your forms. I can't go on and like print out the ASR, the newest. I have to contact Maria at REAC and say, hey, can you get me the newest copy of that? And which is a good benefit for you all because the regular Tom, Dick, and Larry out there are not going to be able to go on and Google and say, now we have this form and I don't have to be a realtor to do that. So there is benefit there. And also for the guidelines on a lot of those forms are essential. That's the other thing. If you guys do have questions on the new forms, the guidelines that they put out are very, very beneficial. I know they're voluminous. It's like 5 pages to tell you about a paragraph, but they go into great detail. Some of them use examples. So try to utilize those to the extent possible as well. So I think so. I listened to the Bright webinar and they said that the co-op broker fees cannot be included into the compensation field. Yes, yeah, that is correct. You cannot put any reference to that into any of the compensation fields, into the broker remarks, into the concessions, or anything along those lines. Is a link to a non-IDX Fed website allowed in the remarks? That's a good question. From my understanding, yes, or at least a reference. I don't know if a link, but you can say, check out my website here for additional information, as long as that website is not pulling the information, uploading it directly, or you're saying, check out this information for offers of compensation. I think you need to keep it a little bit more amorphous than that. Can you, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I got that one. Yep. Buyer agent contract states 2.5%, but seller offering 3 compensation for buyer's agent. Are you allowed to take it through? I think I addressed that, but yes, as long as you go back and do an amendment to your buyer agent contract. Watch the webinars being offered. Thank you, Brian Berkheimer. Yep. Is there a forum to allow potential buyers into an open house? So you are allowed to do that as a listing agent. You can let a buyer in. It's just you cannot try to provide services to that buyer like you ordinarily would, right? Like if you're not entering into a buyer agency agreement, I would hope you're not going to be advising them on, oh yeah, let's make an offer that, you know, let's consent to dual agency, let's do this, that, or the other. So I think it's going to be treating it the same way of saying, hey, if you're represented by an agent, let's have the agent here. I can represent you if your seller's consented to dual agency and they're okay with that. But other than that, it's just kind of, if you have questions, you know, you're going to have to, you know, contact an agent. I can answer them to the extent I can, but I can't represent you as the agent. So I don't think you're going to see a separate form that's going to address that, though. I think
So-
you may see a disclosure, some type of
What,
thing.
what would you recommend, say, an agent holding an open house for a listing agent?
Yep.
And their intention is to capture buyers,
Mhm.
right? And they find out a buyer or 2 buyers coming into the open house aren't represented. What do they need to provide them at that point?
So I think, I mean, you can have your consumer notice ready, you can have your buyer agency agreement ready for them. But really, there's nothing specific beyond letting them know, hey, here's the consumer notice. I would always give them a consumer notice. If they don't want anything, they're not signing that, right? And at least you can demonstrate you've given them something that explains those relationships. And then it's a matter of explaining to them, I can't really explain much to you other than give you the brochure. If we don't have this agency agreement, have that NPC form up, right? The new NPC form that can explain to them, this is why there's a lawsuit out there that says I can't even tour this property with you. You can do it by yourself, but an agent can't do it with you unless we have an agency agreement.
Perfect.
It's going to be awkward. I mean, don't try to paint it any other way than it is. It's going to be a very awkward conversation, but also be on the lookout because I think there's going to be, I'll call them plants, people who are going to go out to try to do this on behalf of plaintiffs' attorneys
You got
to try to trip you up.
This is
So,
important.
yeah, you're going to have, just like you saw with the real estate commission a little bit ago, where there are people going out, you know, oh, hey, I want to be in a community where, you know, there's no people of this nationality or something like that. And agents would, you know, enter into maybe not too much, but maybe some banter. Oh, yeah, we can help you out and look for that. That it's a trap that they fell into, and now they have FHA issues, now they have ethical issues and all these other issues. So that is likely going to happen here, but so you just have to be on your best behavior. So when somebody says to you, hey, I want to see the house, but I don't want to, and I want you to tell me all about it, but I don't want to sign that agreement. It's one of those, I understand it's going to be weird, sorry, but you have to, otherwise I can't help you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you don't
that's the way
want
it is. Yep.
you don't want to find yourself in trouble with that.
Yeah, it's almost like you're the non-licensed salesperson who's hosting the opening the door at the open house. You know, oh hey, what's the school district like? Not allowed to say anything. Check the brochure, right? That's going to be the response back. Yeah, yep. So I think that's the way to do it. Can we no longer act as a sub-agent for the seller with a buyer? Yes, you can. You can still do the broker fee agreement as long as you're disclosing to the buyer you are not representing them. You're not entering into any type of agency relationship with them. And there's actually, I think, and I don't know if you guys printed it out, there is a no representation addendum as well, a brand new form that they came out, one of the 23, I think, or whatever, that basically says there's no agency relationship being formed with his client. So use that form. But yes, you can act as the sub agent. I mean, effectively, you need to disclose that. I don't know how, unless you're the seller, the listing agent, that's going to be an awkward relationship because giving them access to the property without being a buyer agent, it's going to be a little bit tricky. So I think you're going to see sub-agency in the sense that the listing agent is likely going to be doing work on behalf of the buyer in order to effectuate the sale without forming a relationship or a fiduciary relationship with the buyer themselves. So yeah, back to where we were, 50 some years ago. Interesting times, guys. I'm telling you. Yep. Any other questions? Sorry, I took up way too much time. So
No, you're fine. This is, we need to take,
yeah.
yeah, we need this. So any other questions while Peter's here? Because we're 30 days away. We have a couple more PAR trainings to do. We're going to utilize as much as we can, but I wanted to bring him in so you had somebody to do the Q&As. Any questions? Good, Jeff.
One more question.
Yeah.
Steph and I were talking. So
Well, normally you could say, hey, yeah, it's a 2-bed, it's a 1-bath, it's got, 1,500 square feet. That's right. Yeah,
Once you start talking about substantive stuff,
correct.
it's not public knowledge.
Yeah. What school district is it in? It's in, York Suburban, what township? Can you tell me? That's right. Yeah, yeah. Has the seller taken care of it? What do you think about this? Like, how much maintenance do you think I'm gonna have to do once I move in and all this? I would say that's where you're starting to get into a little bit of discretion. What if I offered a little bit less than asking? Would they be willing to take that? Of course, you would never want to obviously go down that path, but all of that is where you're getting into, you need an agent. And I can help you if my seller's consented. Otherwise, you're gonna have to get your own. So.
Can you just summarize that question for Will?
Yes. So the question was, what can you really do with the buyer agent once they come in? And if they do come in, are you allowed to kind of assist them? Jeff, am I summarizing that correctly? Yeah. Yeah, and are you allowed to share anything? And really, it should be kept to the facts about the house, anything that's public record, and nothing that really goes into any type of detail or discretion. So, nothing about the purchase price like I was talking about, and nothing about, oh yeah, I think the seller might be willing to waive it. If you waive inspections, that'll make it more palatable to them, or about how they can craft an offer. If you close in 30 days, it's going to be more attractive than 60. All of that stuff you want to stay away from. Ashley. Yes.
We have them out in that link, but we'll post them again. There's one at the end of is it beginning of August?
Hang on, Shauna just said.
I know the other one was yesterday.
I had it crossed off.
I don't have it memorized.
Yep. That's
So-
it. Yep.
So the 23rd, keep in mind, the 23rd is after the fact. So try to get on that 7th one if you want to. Yeah, you get the recording. Yes. Yes, you do get the recording if you register.
Recording.
Yeah.
Also, just my opinion, it's easier to watch the recording because you can pause it.
Oh my
and
goodness,
cross it.
yeah. Go ahead and register.
The links in the KW Keystone Agent page, it should be pretty close. So just go in there, register, and then they'll get you their stuff. Reed, did you have a question over there? Okay. Everyone? Okay.
It's all possible. I'd like to add on to your gratitude. The last 4 years of serving on the board of directors has been a sincere pleasure. One of the best things that has occurred in the 4 years is getting to work beside our attorney here. He is 100% amazing. I think that he is an encyclopedia of wealth and knowledge and it comes to this. And I think we all should thank him.
That's a great way to end it. Thanks.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If you guys are good, I'm sure he has other stuff to do. So Peter, thank you so much for coming in again.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you, everyone on Zoom. See you next month.